Well, yeah, I haven't really thought of an intro.
Yeah, dude, like now's the time. Like
I guess that's the intro.
that's the
Um,
intro, is like there's no intro.
yeah, I guess there's no intro. I mean, we're just gonna be talking. All right. Well, what's up, guys? This is gonna be my podcast, the Dilly podcast, episode one. Just talking to people in the industry I think are interesting, and I've got my commentary duo, my partner over here, Manu Singhal. What's up, Manu?
Hey. It's actually crazy. I'm really honored actually to be like the first guest on the podcast. That's
Aw.
quite an honor. Thank you,
Dude,
my friend.
yeah, dude. I always love just having our. I love having our chats. This was just an excuse to like talk to you more.
Yeah,
So
really.
it was just me deciding to for us to have a conversation. I just put some topics together that I thought you had interesting takes on. But yeah, for people at home, like, do you have just like a quick intro? I'm sure you have one of those cooked up.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I should have one at this point, but whatever. You're just gonna get whatever comes off the dome. So yeah, hello, I'm Manu. Been Speedcuber for I started in 2012, so Jesus. Yikes.
You're old.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, like Yihung is younger than my ID.
Oh Lord.
Jeez. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, so yeah, I've been speaking for a long time. Started in middle school, I took a little break in high school. Then when I went to college at UC Berkeley, that's when I really got back into cubing again. And cubing has given me so many friends and stuff. So I'm in it for the long haul. I'm a delegate now. I am in California. I'm in Southern California, actually, in Los Angeles. So I'm just glad that everything did not burn down. But yeah, other than that, like one of my favorite parts about cubing and like being involved in cubing is like commentary. It's just been so much fun watching like the top solvers in the world, and like every single week they continue to stun us. And I just think it's quite an honor to be able to just like even like look at the solves, even like my mediocre self. I can just look at the solves and like disseminate that to the rest of the cubing world. I think it's really fun. I have a great time with it. It's also a lot easier when you have a great commentator such as Dylan Miller alongside. So
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
that's the brief. That's the lowdown.
Awesome. Well, okay. On that note, we have our little topics here that we're going to talk about. But,
Dude, I'm hyped for these. They're
dude,
like these are all great.
talking about commentary, dude. First thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know you've talked about this moment a little bit. NA All Stars, right? We had 30 of the best
Mm.
cubers in the world. Well, in North America, I guess, Canada and Mexico, come together in the Mall of America. Absolutely insane moment. You were casting most of this. Um, just like off the bat, like how was your experience casting? And like what do you think about just like the All Stars format in general? I know this has been hashed on, but
Dude, All Stars was so fun. And I think like I don't know if I've met anyone who said that All Stars was a disaster.
yeah,
I think like it was like a win-win-win for like basically every single party. And casting it was so fun because it's like super concentrated, right? Like you have like the best people in the world and they're like all there, right? And they're all just like razzling, dazzling this crowd in the Mall of America also, right? I think the stage was like incredible. I thought like the production work was also like really, really good. Having that like replays and like everything up on that like big like jumbotron was super, super cool. And yeah, when you get great moments like, Tymon 392, yourself clutching it up to make it into finals.
dude.
Man, that was so fun. Nick and I had a blast commentating that.
Yeah. I dude, I don't know why people always talk about Sol 5 semis of All Stars because I
Dude,
even
it's the
on
reaction. It's the reaction. That's why.
dude, even on stream, dude, I get people. I had one of my like friends talking about it, and I was just like, I don't even like y'all always bring it up. I feel like y'all always use the clip. I don't understand, dude. I feel like it's just like a mid like 5 second solve for me. I wish because I think the whole thing is like, oh, it's like all the pressure's on, but y'all didn't realize that I was in the exact same spot round one. Round one, I clutched up PR2 in first round of All Stars. I was second place in the round to Tymon.
Mm.
And then it's like I was in the same spot where like I take forever to get ready, and then I was like the only one on stage. But y'all showed the 5-9 instead of the 5-7 where like I clutch up like PR2. I don't know. Whatever. Besides
Fair
the
enough.
point.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like a storylines thing, right? It's like whatever the storyline works at the time. The other thing, well, okay, the one thing I didn't like about All Stars, I guess, is I didn't like how everyone was stationary, right? Which is
Yeah.
good for the competitors, right? And I think it's good probably for the audience also, but it is bad when you only have cameras on two stations. that is a bit of a bummer because then you can't see everyone in like group one, like
Yeah.
group two. Like it was a lot easier when we got to round two because I think most people were able to be on the stream. And then obviously in finals, everyone was there head to head.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was cool because I hadn't seen much of like mobile cam stuff happening, but I think All
Mm,
Stars was one of the first mobile cam comps that I'd been to at least. And Brian wasn't on stream for semis,
right,
but he
right.
got PR and they were able to capture it because they were like, it's kind of like a real broadcast where it's like, dude, this guy's on pace. This is what you need to be showing the camera, right? Like,
Exactly.
this is what's
Yeah.
the entertaining stuff. Like, so I think that's always cool that they were able to do that. Um, my my favorite moment from All Stars, like we talked about a little bit, was Timon's 392.
Ah,
I just want to hear your thoughts on that moment and like how you feel it went and just casting it and the environment, what it means for like cubing in such like a public eye.
yeah, I mean, I think like that, all of that all comes together in my head. So I'm sitting there next to Nick Silvestri, right? And Nick also commentated Nats 2023, so that's how we kind of knew each other. And then we have in front of us, we have like a screen that shows, we call it the multi-view. So you can see like a bunch of different cameras, what's gonna come up next on the preview. And then sitting next to Tymon, we have Maddie, right? And so we're switching between Maddie and Tymon, and then we have a big view where we see whatever is being shown to the stream. The thing is that matchup, Maddie and Tymon, was so back to back, and it was like it like went what is the phrase? It got out of the gates like head first or whatever, hit the ground running. And the first four solves were just amazing. So I remember Nick was trying to finish up his thought as Timon had finished inspection. And then I think what was in that clip, I think I said, "What is going on?" or like, "This is insane." And then the two of us both pop off 392. That was the first sub four I think I have ever seen, like personally, like been in
Yeah.
like the same room. And his reaction afterwards was also like incredible. I don't know what it was like out like in the audience area where everyone else was, but man, back behind the prod team, they were all like popping off too, like because we're all cubers, right? So
Yeah.
we all love to see it happen. It was so fun.
Dude, yeah, I as a competitor, so I had finished my average by the time I'm there. I knew I was not podiuming because Greiser locked an average ahead of me. So like I'm just sitting in
Mm.
front of Greiser and I see like Timon and Maddie go up and it's just like they're just so good, dude. They're so good. For
Yeah, right.
me, it was so sick that because like there's the clip of me looking around at like all three levels and it's like a
Yeah,
coliseum in there, dude. Like from my perspective,
yeah.
it was insane to be in there. But dude, Timon comes at the gate like you said, crazy hot on sub 5 pace, and it's just to me and all the other competitors were watching Timon and we were just like, this guy's popping, this guy's going crazy right now. And then it's like you couldn't have. We were talking about all stars of like this could be the start of something great for cubing, right?
Hmm.
And I think the Timon, like it's you can see somebody like you can see everybody in like the 6-5 second range or whatever, but when you see the guy come out on stage and not only is he just like winning, he's crushing what you're used
Yeah.
to seeing like a whole final of 5 second solves, and then this guy just gets like 4 4 low 5 3. Dude, we were just like, of course he pulls out a fucking three, dude. Like of course he does. Like
Yeah.
it was insane, and like I think for a non-cuber, just seeing the gap there is just it's something that reels you in for sure. I think that was a perfect moment for the All Stars format and like in the Mall of America. It's insane.
I mean, the other thing, I think if you're thinking about from a non-cuber's perspective, right? Well, the first time you tell a non-cuber, like, oh, we're gonna have a Rubik's Cube competition, right? They're like, okay, like, these guys are probably solving what, like maybe 30 seconds or so, right? Like, because the non-cuber thinks that that's like insanely impressive.
Yeah,
Then you show up, right? And then like there's a bunch of these guys, like literally 30 guys, like all solving like within like the 6 to 7 second range. And then you're just like, okay, that's absolutely absurd, right? Then to go in and you see this guy solve a Rubik's Cube in front of your eyes in 3.9 seconds. And I think that really like sets the stage for it basically sets like the range of like, okay, well, this is like what peak performance looks like in Rubik's Cubes. These guys are, thought to be the best, right? They solve in like 6 seconds or so. And then this guy comes out and he gets like a sub 4 second solve. And the other thing is like, our pop off on the commentary cam and the crowds pop off in general, I think that also sends a message like, oh, this is something I should be excited for. And I think that's really important because when a non-cuber looks at cubing, I think it's not necessarily obvious like what is going on, right? Or like what should you be excited for? Because everything seems kind of insane. But in order to you can kind of get clued in with stuff like that and be like, okay, the crowd is reacting to this, therefore that must be like really, really special.
Yeah, for sure. I just I talked to Tymon about it. I told him before the pod. I was like, dude, I'm about to ask Manu about casting the 392, and he was like, oh, what? I didn't even remember that happened. I'm like, dude, you had
Oh my
argued.
God, man.
I was like,
Of
bro,
course.
shut up. Like, you had arguably
course,
like
man.
the greatest moment for a non-cubing perspective, and you just
Yeah.
like don't even remember it. He's like,
Dude, that may have been like you could argue that that was the solve of the year in
yeah,
some sense,
for
right?
like the
Like,
context behind it and like what it
yeah,
meant on such a big stage and in front of. To me, it's just crazy that like All Stars did a great job at putting professional cubing on the stage, even if it's not the format I want to see long term. I think for what it was, it went as perfect as it could have. I don't think it could have gone any better.
yeah, and I mean, from my perspective, also like I also helped set up the stream the night before and tear down immediately after too. I mean, all of that was just great, and a lot of stuff just like kind of worked for All Stars. And one thing I'm curious to hear about is how you thought time base went. But yeah, I thought like it was just amazing, and the atmosphere was great. Getting to meet all the top cubers was great, and at the end of the day, I thought it was a great show for cubing.
Yeah, I agree. On the topic of time base, it was fine. I was on stage. I was on stream station for second round because like I said, I got second in the
Right.
first round, and Blake was my judge. And I kind of know Blake. I kind of know him, but
Yeah.
I just kept forgetting to like tag in and out. Like solve one, I did
Okay,
the
fair
solve and
enough.
I
Yeah.
just didn't tag my time to confirm it. And he was like, "Oh, gotta do that." And then I like was like, "Oh, dude, I'm so silly." And then Timon's right next to me. I feel like a goof. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just like, and then I don't know, dude. And then I remembered the next solve and I told Blake, I was like, "You see, I did it. I did it that time. Trust.
All right, there we
I'm
go.
learning. I'm learning." But it was confusing. But I think it's fine. I don't think it's anything crazy in particular. But anywho, on kind of the topic of like the hype behind the moment, right? This was kind of the big topic I heard you kind of allude to, I think, after our we filmed +3 or whatever. I'm curious on like, we want to get as much hype as possible in the community, especially around events like All Stars or something. We want the crowd to be involved. We want there to be hype and excitement. And something I've been thinking a lot about, just like toying around with the idea, is like the crowd problem in cubing, right? There is kind of like a give and take involved with the crowd in a major. We've seen instances of crowds causing extras or just general problems in major finals. So you can think Yihang Worlds 2023, where it's Sol 5. He needs to just not get WPA to win Worlds. If he does get WPA, he loses by 0.01. He has one lockup. There's a chink in his armor, and then everybody's like, "Oh, it's possible, it's possible." And then there's some controversy behind that. He's like, maybe his mom's like, "Oh, give him an E1." Kevin will like wait 2 minutes in finals to wait for Max Park to finish his solve so that he doesn't have to deal with applause. It's tricky to orchestrate the crowd alongside everything, and that's led to Worlds this year saying, unless extreme cases of reaction or crowd noise, no extras being given in that instance. If you're in a major final, you should come to expect that. So I'm just curious, how do you think we can get more hype into majors without like sacrificing competing conditions? Do you think we'll see a cultural shift to where like, maybe it'll be something like bowling? I've been watching bowling lately, or horse racing, where it's like as soon as the gate goes, maybe we're quiet in inspection, but then as soon as the solve starts, everybody's like chanting. Maybe we just need to change the culture. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really complicated. I think you're right. I think whatever it is, it definitely has to be a change in culture. I don't think there's like rules or things that we can kind of enforce to do this. And I think the reason why it's complicated, right, is because it's not just like it's not something where like if I accidentally turn my flash on, right? Where it's like clearly it's like a one-way distraction, right? Where it's like it's clearly just like objectively bad for the competitor. There's like no reason that this should exist, right? Whereas like I think like crowd hype is really important if we want to basically if we ever want to make cubing watchable in person, there has to be some kind of crowd hype. Otherwise there's just no point, right? Why would I show up in person where I have to shut up, where I can just like literally go to the room next door, pull up the live stream. Yeah, it might be delayed, but at least I can pop off as much as I want, right? When my guy Dilly Millie like gets sub 4 average.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so I think it's complicated for that reason. I think in a pure ideal world, and maybe I'm gonna get flamed for this, but you know that's why we're here, right? To make hot takes. I think the crowd just does whatever they want, because in the end of the day, I think it's very difficult to police a crowd. At Euros, this year, if you have any final that isn't head to head, everyone is going at the same time, right? And depending on how long that event is, like you're gonna get people reacting at different times, even if you tell them not to react, right? It's just impossible to tell. It's impossible to tell the entire country of Ireland to not pop off if Kieran gets like a really good single when Tymon is next to him and then Timofey is like on the other side, right? It's just like extremely difficult to do that, and I think it's somewhat counterintuitive to do that. If you're like a non-cuber coming into it from basically any other sport other than like tennis or bowling, you're basically always going to react to whatever is going on. So I think in that sense, cubers need to, it's kind of a skill issue, and cubers need to learn how to get better about it. I do think that there are like other alternatives that can be done though. I actually really like the bowling idea too, because it also is similar to tennis and it's similar to golf also, right? Because in golf, like everyone shuts up like going into the shot, right? But once the ball is hit, then there's like follow through and whatnot. But after that, like what's done is done. And maybe that is like okay, like you can start reacting at that point. Whatever it is, it's definitely going to be a cultural thing. But I am of the mindset that if you have the best solving conditions, you're going to get the objectively best solves, right? Because you're simulating home conditions. But if you have like a hostile environment or maybe not a super conducive environment, you're still going to get really entertaining results. Because if anything, I think it's an equalizer. And I think that makes cubing more hype to watch in the end. But I think that is a question of what do you want to prioritize? Do you want to prioritize close matches, even though it might be significantly worse than what people global? Or do you want like the results to be the best possible results in the world? Do you want to be breaking world records at world championships essentially?
Yeah.
I think that's not obvious. I think at some point cubing may have to pick.
Yeah. I I think we do have to pick. Maybe there's a role where we don't. Maybe we say this type of comp. We're
Sure.
aiming. Maybe it's an organizer dependent thing. It's like we want to prioritize good conditions. Tell everybody this is a quiet comp. Like, just shut up. Um, I do. I think. Look, I'm a top level solver. I'm particularly scatterbrained. I don't like hearing noise or whatever. But the thing that made me think about this was I was watching bowling, like I said,
Mhm.
and the commentator said so essentially in the approach, right? Like you're saying, like in the setup for the shot or whatever, the crowd is dead silent. There are pro bowlers who will see people standing, walking to their seat in a crowd, and they will wait. They will wait for two
Oh,
people in like
wow.
a 200 person crowd to sit down, which feels a little extreme.
Wow.
Maybe the analogy to cubing is Michael Nielsen taking a minute to get ready in major finals, whatever. I do the same thing, so I'm kind of a guilty party in that as well. But I do think we just need to get more hype into. I think I personally I've been toying around with the idea. I like I said, inspection be quiet. Let them plan. Once you're executing, if you're getting messed up, it's kind of skill issue. And I directly get hurt by this, but I would love to see hype. Like, I follow Melee slightly, tangentially related to Melee. And I was talking about it to you earlier, but dude, when Mango is on last
Mm.
stock of a major, dude, everybody, the crowd, Mango, Mango. It gets so lit, and if you want non-cubers to be involved, like you gotta give them something. Like it doesn't. They don't
Something,
even need to
yeah.
know what's going on, but they can cheer until it's done. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I don't know. Do you even think long term it holds back cubing or just like the broadcasting capacity of cubing if we just keep the current crowd system now?
I think it does. And one of the reasons why I think it does is if you have the crowd be quiet, you also need the casters to be quiet unless they are not in the same room. Because, like I said, if you're in a different room, you can pop off however much you want most of the time. But if you're in the same room, which usually tends to be the case for at least all of the majors that I've been in, then you also have to shut up. And that also happened at NAC this year, where Keaton and Kevin are on the mic. They're doing 3x3 finals, and Calvin Nielsen has to run over and be like, "Guys, you're being a touch too loud. You got to tone it down a little bit." And they lowered their volumes, and we upped the gain on the production side in order to like kind of compensate for it. So even us trying to be mindful, like putting talking into that curtain, right, which is supposed to absorb a ton of noise, putting that like wall slash banner behind us also, which was also soft, supposed to absorb noise. A lot of these things just end up causing the other problem is like if you have like a silent venue, right, then you can hear a pin drop. But if you have at least a little bit of noise, then like at that point, like you can kind of like talk a little bit and raise your voice like a little bit without having it being super disturbing, I think. So I think it's a long-term detriment um, from basically from the spectator perspective. You can't pop off. It's not as hype when you're there in the moment. And at that point, just watch it on the stream.
Yeah, for sure. I I don't know. The reason I bring up like talk like being able to shout during an attempt is like I said, there's one guy on the PBA tour who he intentionally tells everybody before and he's like, look, I know that if everybody's quiet and like you're saying, if it's a quiet room and if anything's going on that's out, like it distracts you. But when there's a lot
Hmm.
more going on, you just tune out all the background noise, and it's kind of skill issue. Just
Right.
like do that. But he says, "Yo, if on my approach, I want y'all to be loud, have fun, enjoy the game." And he's like one of the
Oh
best
yeah.
bowlers, like and so maybe there's a cuber who comes up one day and he changes the culture. They change the culture maybe, and they're like, you know, be loud all you want during my attempt, bro. Have fun, get hype. Um,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. And that plays into something I think we're going to talk about later also is like personality, right? Like, like it or not, one of the probably things that Greiser is going to be most well known for is I know this one. Like he knows that ZB, right? And why? Because it was kind of a comical moment in an otherwise like tense Nats 2023 finals, right? It got the crowd involved. He like ended up smiling and stuff. Obviously, like that's not the way he wanted it to go. But he was able to like make the best out of a bad situation, get everyone else involved, and everyone was able to have fun with it also. I think at the end of the day, like the best speedkeepers will show up whether there's no noise or whether there's a ton of noise. And what we're just gonna change the conversation around it. Like when the darts world championships happen, like darts is like a pub game, right? So everyone's boisterous and loud anyway. But when the darts world championship happens and like the person manages to hit like triple bullseye or whatever, or like clutch up the final triple to win it, we call that guy clutch in the face of adversity, right? So I think we're just going to change the way we talk about it, and we're just going to see different people rise to the occasion, right? And just make the most of it. So I that's what I personally think is best. And obviously, we definitely want to cater to the top speed solvers as well, right? We're not just going to have like a megaphone like blaring in everyone's ears and call it equal, because that's not what we're trying to do either.
yeah, for sure. I I don't know. I told you this too. Back to bowling, but the commentator said, "I wish we started our sport without this culture."
Mm.
And I think it's hard to just like go back on the entire lifespan of the WCA. We've had this culture around that, and I think trying to go back and change it is not the easiest thing,
Hmm.
especially when there's this current gen of solvers. Especially Yihing's asking for extras all the time. He's an extra guy, but
Yeah.
there's people who are just I don't know. I think it's really hard when you've grown accustomed to that culture in your sport, and then it just changes all of a sudden. And to what gain? Not yours. If anything, your competing
Right.
conditions are harder. It's like, why should I care about the spectators? And I think,
Yeah.
I kind of play both sides, right? I'm more of like I'm for the hype. I'm for the moment. I of course want good results, and I would like good conditions to do that. But All Stars was like a kind of foray into like maybe this isn't about me. Maybe if you look at like there's a reason why people like Michael Jordan. It's because he was clutch, dude. He was able to show up on the biggest stage and perform. And like that's like something you
Yeah.
need to expect out of people at the top of their game. And if you can't handle that, then like you said, skill issue. Like just get better. So
I mean, and yeah, there are ways to get better at it too, right?
yeah,
Like you can put yourself in those situations. When people get like nervous or whatever, like you might be like like a really good blinder, right? But if you can't solve it in front of someone else, then like you could kind of lose a lot of your credibility, right? So there are like ways to like train yourself to do it too. And I'm not trying to say that like if you can't handle the noise, get out of the kitchen
yeah,
and like cubing isn't for you, because that's not it either,
yeah,
right? Because at some point we need to have some conditions where people will break the world records, especially since, as you said, we've kind of established this already. And trying to change everything would require either like a records deletion, which would really, really suck, or like separate leaderboard, which also doesn't really make sense, right? So I think there's a time and place for it. And maybe that's where you get into the concept of like having different competitions, right? You have like one competition which is really meant for the spectators, and it's just kind of like hullabaloo. It's just like kind of all it's all there, and then you have another one which is like just like pure results based. Is like, let's just give you the best situation and see what you can do with this.
yeah. And I think that kind of transitions into the whole idea of like changing the culture we've established in cubing. I think we've talked about it, but there's the average of five format, like we
Mm.
talked about with All Stars. It did very good for what it was, but I want to talk about what do you see as other viable formats in the WCA. We've talked about a few. We've talked about FGC stuff, but we've seen an SSL, the double elim bracket,
Yep.
insane. I've been watching bowling lately. They do ladder brackets, which I had never seen before.
So what is this? I've never
Okay,
heard of it.
ladder brackets are interesting. So essentially, there's match play. Okay, so in bowling, it's like whoever gets the best score over like 3 or 4 days, you get seeded. Okay, the person who is first in match play is automatically in grand finals.
Okay.
They
Wow.
don't compete until grands.
Wow.
There's a set
Okay.
amount of people that
Jeez.
make the ladder. So say it's like 5 people.
Mhm.
Fifth place goes against fourth place. Winner of
Okay.
that plays third place. Winner of
Oh,
that plays
wow.
second place. Winner of that plays first place.
Wow, that is a gauntlet.
Dude, it's crazy because there's some people imagine because I understand it. I didn't really like it at first because I think there's a huge benefit to the first place person because it's like you just
Yeah.
win one match and then you just lie. But I think it rewards you for just being consistently good, and as well, it's like maybe it's not even that much of an advantage for real either because you're kind of getting iced, right?
Iced.
If you're
Yeah.
going against the guy, like if you go against the fifth
Who's
place
hot a
guy,
hot streak.
dude,
Right.
exactly. He
Yeah.
just won 4 matches in a row. He's playing on the he's been solving. You're just sitting in the background watching him cook. Like maybe you're getting nervous. I don't know. I don't know. I think
Huh.
ladder is kind of interesting. I've kind of come around to the idea of it. And there's other double elim bracket is what I've been a huge proponent of. I think SSL did a great job of showing that. But for me personally, like kind of getting to the end point here, but I think, dude, do whatever the organizers want. I think it's me personally. I think it's silly that there's only one valid format in the WCA. Even having all stars was tricky. That was kind of a tricky
Right.
thing. It was not even. That was kind of like pushing the status quo a little bit. And so I'm of the opinion we should do a double elim bracket. If that works out bad, do a ladder bracket. If that works out, do it. Recently, dude, majors need to be AO7. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Average of 7. Okay. So okay, let me start off with this. I actually kind of don't really like the average of 5 the average of format anyway. I think like I think it's like fine. It's like what we've been using forever, and it seems reasonable. You drop one solve, and because it's good, you drop one solve because it's bad. Sure, but if you're like a random spectator who has no idea what cubing is what's going on in cubing, you're not going to understand what counting solve is. It just makes no sense at all. And to rank everyone by average of 5 after they go head to head in a final also doesn't really make that much sense because you're not directly competing against the person. So it's not really head to head. The only thing that's a head to head is the fact that like only one person is solving at a time as opposed to what we normally do where everyone solves at the same time. That's like the only difference. And so I don't think that any those make any sense. What I would personally like to see is I want to see a like first two or best of. And I think like best of 7, for example, like SSL was a fantastic format
I agree.
because I think I do like the 7 number. I think 7, at least for 3x3.
Yeah.
I'm like we're only talking about 3x3. I'm not trying to watch 7x7 solves. Like
No, yeah.
absolutely no way. But yeah, for 3x3, I think 7 solves like makes a lot of sense. And I think I think it like opens it up to like if you get like a bad result, right? Now like you have to carry that a lot further, right? So I think it's more punishing in that way, but it's also more rewarding if you get like a really good result. So I think I would be down to see it get expanded, and yeah, I would be down to see it get expanded. But I think overall, I think it's better to move away from like average of 5. And as far as like what like the rounds format should be. I love double elimination brackets. I mean, during COVID, I watched so much Smash, and it's just so hyped to see the guy in losers just claw through everyone else. You lose first, like your first game in winners, you lose, like Tymon did in
Dude,
SSL,
exactly what I was gonna say.
and you claw your way all the way back up to face the guy who knocked you out, right? Like that's it's just so hype. The storyline works really well. It's simple to understand for any like random viewer. I think it's really fun. I think a ladder bracket could be really cool too. Like this just the storylines. And I think you're right. I think it's not as obvious that being first place is that good. Obviously you have to win less, but if you're someone who's prone to getting iced, then it's all of a sudden there's a match.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think also we talk a lot about like the spectator experience, right? If you don't know, like you said, you're kind of known for talking about the average of 5 format. You gotta inform the masses, right? You gotta.
Someone's gotta tell them how it
They
works,
gotta
right?
tell them, dude, because I'm not gonna tell them. Okay. But there's a lot more context you need, even if you don't know how cubing works or like I solve a cross, whatever. I don't know how Smash works. I don't know how to wave dash. I don't know how to L can.
Yeah,
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
exactly.
But when I see Puff go crazy, it's lit. When I see Mango do some crazy combo, knock a dude off the stage, I know something cool is happening. And I think that's the tricky part with cubing is that there's no, like you said earlier, there's no clear indicator of what is a good or bad moment or what is
Hmm.
some like. It's very apparent when watching a fighting game or something or under other head-to-head formats, like even in Tetris or something. I've been watching Tetris. Laser Monkey's a big overlap in Tetris, and that's where the Monkey League format comes from. If you
Right.
weren't aware, but it's interesting to see, and I think head to head makes it a lot more digestible without knowing what's going on. You just see this guy faster time than this guy, and like you said,
Yeah.
if you have to throw in like, oh well, this guy went head to head with somebody else, but he's not even they're not even going against each other. It's entirely random. Like it's silly, and so I'm of the opinion if cubing is to ever break into mainstream, which Red Bull tried to do. Red Bull
Hmm.
tried when I was cubing and Red Bull came around. I think everyone kind of had a distaste for the way that they wanted to change things up. They shook things
Yeah.
up, and I don't think anyone was really happy with it. But now everyone's asking for it. I'm asking for it. I was a hater before, dude. I want to see more things like SSL. And so, do you see the future of cubing being in a head-to-head context? Do you think both can exist at the same time?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question because I think we've been talking a lot about like what it's going to look like for the top competitors. I think both formats can exist. I think if you are someone like me, who's just kind of like, mid-tier solver, but enjoys cubing, likes hanging out with your friends and whatnot, I think you can go to a competition in, let's say, 2050, and things are going to be exactly the same as they are now. Or, if anything, they're going to be better. But it's going to be your simple, like, you can go compete in as many events as you want. Um, do your average of 5, your results get uploaded to the WCA website or whatever, and you have an official profile and you are part of our community in like an official manner. I think you should definitely be able to do that. I think another thing that cubing needs to be able to do is that if we want to sustain the amazing growth that we've seen post-pandemic, is we need to be able to appeal to people who don't want to cube but just want to follow cubing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Like, I could learn to play Melee, right? But I find it really fun, even though I don't know how to play Melee. Other than, like me when I was younger, just smashing C-Stick all the time because it was fun. Like, I think like that is really important. I love watching Ultimate, even though like I sometimes nowadays I have no idea what's going on. Steve is just going crazy. He's
Oh,
placing
dude.
blocks down everywhere, ridiculous combos. He broke the game, but it's still really, really fun to watch. Even the darts, I had no idea. I didn't even know how their format worked.
Yeah.
But it was still really interesting to see people get into it. And eventually, like, okay, like I understood how the format worked after it was like literally explained to me once, right? Um, but I think you need to have both of them. You need to have people comfortable enough to play in a pub for the darts setting, but you also need to be able to have like a highly competitive, like really curated set of folks who are willing to just lay it all on the line and like really prove like who is the best. I think you need to have both of them. And I think the WCA has absolutely like done a fantastic, phenomenal job at doing the former, because there are 250,000 people who have ever competed in an official event. That's pretty awesome. Like, that's amazing reach
Yeah.
for something for our organization, right? It's all about like how can we like take that to the next step and encourage growth in our community, because the most people who play football are not pros.
Yeah.
They're the random children who like play for like, they're like little league team or whatever, right? Or like, they play in high school or whatever, right? And they grow like a fondness of the sport. I think cubing needs to move in that sort of way. That's what I think it is, at least.
Yeah. And I mean, do you think so? Do you think these comps need to be tiered? I've seen the idea thrown around of like tiered competitions. I think they do a good job of doing this, right? Of course, we still need to figure out how are we going to get people into the entry level competitions and whatever, and
Yeah.
we can get to that later. But do you do you think tiered comps are the answer to this? Right? Do you think they have a space in cubing or in the WCA at large, or do you think it's more so like maybe another organization could potentially come in and fill the gap? Do you think the WCA? I think I've seen someone in my chat, Car Thomas, was saying that WCA wants to be the arbiter for top level competition. I'm not too sure about that. I think they do their ground level job very well. But I just, if you have any thoughts.
Yes, I think regarding what Carter said, I think that's really interesting, and I think that would be really good. I think that would be good if the WCA was able to um basically like have like extremely competitive events such that we can market and sell it, because that's really what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
In order for cubing to grow and in order for it to hit the mainstream, we basically need to start collecting more funds from outside of cubing, right? Because that's something that is, I think that's why I think cubing and Smash are like really, really related, because we're both like a grassroots organization. The difference is the WCA has the support of the dev,
Yeah.
right? We have the support of Rubik's, which we didn't have for a long time. Also,
Yeah.
like for a long time, Rubik's was not down with speed cubing, but thankfully, a lot of things have worked out in our favor. So I think that they're very similar in that way. What was my original point? Oh yes, I think the WCA should take a closer look at how they can promote competitive, like highly competitive events. And I think if that ends up being the case, then I think we can be pretty confident in saying that they are the arbiters of the highest level of competition. Now, whether or not tiered events is the solution, I don't know. I quite like tiered events. I think it makes sense, and I don't think it's super difficult to move into a tiered event system. And here's why. we already take into account how many competitors show up at a competition. So all you need to do is do like a system somewhat similar to Smash, where you use the number of attendees to determine how like prestigious the competition is, and then from there you can assign everyone some amount of points, right? For like, oh, you got first place at an A tier event, or you got third place in a B tier event, right? And then from there you can calculate some kind of power ranking, if you will. And then after that, it's very simple. You can just have an invitational with that could be separate from the world championships. It doesn't even have to be worlds.
Yeah.
It could be a separate invitational that you have, and you just take the top 16 from the power rankings. And maybe you throw in a couple people like popular votes. You want to see these cubers show up because you think that they'd be entertaining or otherwise would be competitive, but kind of got unlucky or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that is like a really interesting system. A, because it mirrors Smash, and Smash has seen amazing success, but B, I think it works well with the current infrastructure that we already have. You can have your competitions as normal. Nothing needs to change. All that needs to happen is that someone just needs to run a little calculation and boot up some database and have an invitational, which is just All Stars.
Exactly. Yeah, and like we said, All Stars was even hard to get through in the first place, right? It was the first of its kind.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
in my opinion, maybe I'm biased because I attended All Stars. We need more of them, bro. Like straight up, like I don't see, and maybe not to the same degree where it's like everybody we're in the Mall of America. We need to go to the Mall of Canada. What it doesn't matter, right? One of the biggest Smash tournaments is held in a dude's basement, and you called me out on it. You said it's a really cool basement, but it's a basement nonetheless. Okay, you can do it literally wherever. No one cares. I mean, to a degree, you need to have a certain level of professionalism, but no one cares where it's at, dude. And that's why Monkey League was so sick, because it's like no one really cares what it looks like as long as you have the best people in the world doing it. And that's the same for, like we talked about, we've thrown around darts and melee and bowling. Like, it does not matter. People just want to see people who are the top of their craft be competitive, and that's what we just need to. We need to spotlight that more. And I just feel, to me, I've felt a little, I felt rubbed the wrong way to a degree from the WCA for a while. The fact that they don't, the whole idea is inclusivity and then equality, which I love that. I want the community to grow, but then they're not being fair to the people at the top of the game, and I think that's why we've seen it churn so many top level solvers, right? And I think now we're seeing, with the shift towards more televised events and more prize pools, there's just more money and eyes on it, I think. Not to obviously where we want yet, but it's growing. And that's why we're seeing people stay around longer. Like, I think we will see this generation of cubers, maybe not this one, but the next generation of cubers stay around longer, and they won't get churned out as quick or have to move on to other life duties or what have you. So
I think that last point is a really, really important point, because like that is what ends up happening, right? Like, is you are like, let's say you're one of the best solvers in the world, but now you're like 25 or whatever. You got to make bread, like that you have to, right? Otherwise, like you're literally gonna die.
Word.
Right? And cubing for the longest time has not been the place to do that. It's been like, the very, very few people can make cubing like their full-time career. And more and more people are able to do that now. And I think that that's good. It's something that I don't know if I've mentioned in other places either before, but it's a key phrase that I think is really, really important. In the future, we will need to have a cubing economy. And I think economy means that. I think you need to have not just like the top solvers who can make a living out of cubing, but I think it extends to TOs. I think it extends to, I mean, we literally have a broadcast company that is like made for cubing now. That is like a high degree of specialization. And the reason why we have them is because we've tried other broadcast companies like Worlds 2023, and they have amazing camera quality, and I'm sure they have amazing people and technology, but it lacks the touch that you need for cubing. And that's a big reason why Happy Feet has done so well, and why we Cubers Live, and we have Clicky Studios, and all of these guys, like we're all like really pushing the medium on it. I think, and not to mention now we got coaching, right? Like the fact that you can do cubing full time, like decide, like actively decide, like okay, like I'm gonna take a break from school, in order to focus on cubing, and I can sustain this. I think that's incredible, and being able to provide those opportunities, I think, is really really important. But that's something that we cannot do unless cubing grows, because you can't make a job out of something that no one cares about.
Exactly. Yeah, and we talked to Marinick a bit about it. I think maybe it was you, but Marinick was saying like, Ultimate Frisbee, right? They have their own broadcasting
Mm.
company. It is a niche sport. Is it ever going to break into true mainstream? Probably not. Okay, but there's clubs at colleges. There's means of entry. They're investing money in getting people in younger. There's youth teams, clubs, etc. And maybe the best that cubing ends up to be is ultimate frisbee or disc golf or bowling or something. But at least, like you're saying, there's some economy around it. There is enough that the people who really dedicate themselves or who have put in the time and the effort to become either the top of their sport or the most knowledgeable person or who's done the most that they can to grow the delivery of the product should be able to invest their full time and effort into it, because that's how you're going to see more growth and sustain the environment for everybody going forward, future generations, and that's how you see progression in the sport. And that's all I really want, man. That's all this kind of comes down to, is I just want to see the hobby that I love be like a avenue for somebody to pursue, and just in any aspect.
Yeah, because realistically speaking, it's not gonna be you or me, or it's probably not even gonna be Yihung who like ends up like being like the face of cubing in the end. Like for all we know, like the best cuber has yet to be born,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
But imagine if that were to happen, and they were like really into it, and they literally had held every single world record or something ridiculous, right? And then to find out that they weren't able to compete because of some extenuating circumstance that was like relatively preventable, if basically if they just didn't have enough money to compete, right? That would be a bit of a travesty, I would say. And because when people watch cubing, when kids watch cubing, right, and they want to get into cubing, they see the guys at the top, right? And they're like, I want to be like that guy. Like, I want to be like Luke Garrett. I want to be so good at every single event that I'm literally like top 300 in everything. Or like, they're like Greiser, where like, I want to have that kind of mentality, and where to the point where Greiser he seems really, really productive. Like, he's like plans out like his day and everything, right? Or like, I want to be like Dilly Millie. I want to be this guy who's like really entertaining, fun to watch, and really knowledgeable, like in this depth of the field, right? So I think like people will look at the top solvers and everyone who's at the top, and if they aren't allowed to or capable of delivering that to everyone else, then then cubing is kind of over. There's definitely going to be some kid who watches Timon's 392 and is like, that's amazing, I want in on this.
Yeah.
And imagine if he like wasn't able to be there, right? Because he's from Poland, right? It's a long ways away, to end up in Minnesota. Imagine if he's not able to be there and not able to create that moment. Sure, you can argue that someone else will, or maybe he will in Poland. Um, but it's all about seizing the opportunities that we have. And I think we have a huge opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, I agree. And on the topic of, how you said, me personally, when I started cubing, I got into it because I found a cube in a duffel bag at a garage sale. I looked up cubing, I found Crazy Bag Cuber, and then I found World Record Comps, and I found Felix, I found Kevin,
Yep.
I found these names, and I was like, wow, these guys are insane at this, right? And that was so, dude, that is dinosaur age nowadays. That is
Yeah.
crazy. The fact that kids nowadays can just get a stream of a random
Yeah.
like Ohio comp is insane to me. Okay, that in of itself is crazy. But how do we get these kids into it, right? I think personally we can take a page out of the Speedstacks book. Okay?
Interesting.
Speedstacks got involved in the US as a PE extracurricular thing in school curriculum.
Dude, I remember doing that.
Exactly.
I remember stacking cups in like in my
Exactly.
elementary school gym class.
The way that we had cup stacking in the US is how they have cubing in China. So why it's no wonder, aside from the pure number game, that China is like the most populated country, that they produce the best cubers. They just have so many more people who know about it, right? If
Right. Right.
NA, I think, invested in something along those lines of getting schools in the curriculum, or doing camps, and we've seen some more stuff like that. Like we've seen I've seen queuing pop-ups. I know people who do like pop-up things with like Rubik's. I know Maddie's done a few of these in Hawaii, and I
Yep.
think that's a great thing, because we just need to get it in spots and in public visibility. I saw teacher Shia, I think is Yihang's coach, former Yihang coach,
Mm.
um, is the GaNCube Station YouTube channel or whatever. He did a pop-up on the streets of China, and he just has like a Rubik's snake and a 15 puzzle and a 2x2 and a Megaminx on a table in the middle of the street. And
Okay.
he's handing out pamphlets of with QR codes. And he says, "Hey, first coaching lesson free. I'll teach you how to solve a cube. Tell your parents. Tell your parents." We can
Huh.
do stuff like that in the U. We can do that. Like, just what are your thoughts on how we think? How do you think at all you can just like get people more involved at grass level? How can we make it accessible? Because I think there's a special type of brain that's interested in cubing. I think now
Mm.
I don't think it's everybody, but how can we make it more appealing, or just make it easier to get into it at ground level?
Yeah, I think the story of Speedstacks is really interesting, actually. Along those same lines, so here's what I've been thinking about for maybe like a couple weeks or maybe a month at this point. Is it's really interesting when I'm at the airport, right? And I'm just there like doing 303 because I'm bored out of my mind. I'm just trying to board this flight, right? But people will come up to me and be like, "That is incredible! Like, what is going on here? You must be a genius, right? You must be really good at math, right?" That's the impression that people get, right? Even though like you don't have to be good at math. You gotta know how to, like, if you can make a recipe, you can like cook anything, then you can solve a cube. It's nothing like that. But people think it's really cerebral, right? At the same thing kind of goes, I think, a little bit with chess. People like really associate chess with intelligence, and I think it's a stronger correlation than cubing, at least. But at the end of the day, it's like you're essentially like memorizing a lot of positions and doing some like advanced analysis or calculation, but you don't have to be good at math
Yeah.
to do it. But I wonder if there's a way to kind of um capitalize on the stigma, if you will, the
The
image.
perception. The
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The perception that like people who do this are brainiacs. And I wonder if that's a way to like get kids into cubing. The other thing is, I think actually cubing is, I think like, and even if you don't know how to solve a cube, just manipulating a cube, is like, sure, it's good for your like finger dexterity and like your motor skills, sure. That could certainly be very useful. But two, I think it's actually really important for spatial reasoning. I mean, that's why Erno Rubik invented the cube in the first place, right? He wanted his architecture students to think about like 3D space and manipulating the cube. I think the reason why the top solvers are so good is because like the top solvers have built into their mind, like, okay, well, I just understand how these objects move in 3D space. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that's what's, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what's going on when you're tracing pieces.
Yeah, function in the same way that like top level chess players have a chessboard in their head. I've talked to some people, like, I'm like, dude, how good is your visual cube? Like, I've talked to Tymon about it. I'm like, dude, how good is your visual cube? Because my visual cube kind of lacking sometimes. But I know some people. He's like, I don't even have a visual cube. I just see it, like, for real.
Mm.
But that's how ingrained your understanding of the way these
Yeah,
things
yeah,
move
dude, he's
around
just
is.
built insanely
Dude, no,
different.
it's just like he's just like, I just see it. He's like, I just see first two pairs, the first glance, and I'm just like, okay,
Bro.
thanks, dude.
All right, man.
Thanks, I appreciate it. That's interesting you bring it up, because that was another thing I wanted to talk about. How, yeah, there is this like perception of cubing of like it's for the nerds, and I think I think that is step one, right? Is breaking that perception of,
Mm,
oh, I can't do this. You need to be a genius to do this. And I
yeah.
think that's what's cool about the way China's doing it, because you have to do it for class, bro. At the end of the
Mm,
semester, if you can't solve a 2x2, you're getting a B, a C, whatever, like whatever. So it forces you to at least give it a shot. You know what I mean? in the same way that you stacked cups and you're like, I know cup stacking. That's how the people in China are, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, I know what a cube is. Even if they don't pursue it, it at
Right.
least
Yeah.
gives them the opportunity to see if they like it and if they want to go through with it. And
Yeah.
I think in that same vein, like cubing is really good for. I did a talk at a library in
Mm.
2016. I was like a year into
Uh-huh.
cubing. My parents put me on TV or whatever. I was in the news. What you know what they do that type of
Oh,
stuff.
there we go, dude. He was famous from day one, huh?
It's crazy. You can look at some of the articles. I've had people like in the Southern Cuber Discord. I had people Google my name and then they're like, "Oh my god, I found 12-year-old Dylan." I was like, get out of here! Don't do that, dude. Don't do that." Um, but I did a talk at a library. It was called Puzzle Palooza. They had a thing going on.
Okay.
I did a little thing about cubing, and I had so many parents come up to me and be like, you know, I think this is great because they're just unplugged. They're just. I'm glad that my kid
Hmm.
isn't on TikTok all day. TikTok didn't exist back then,
Yeah.
but same thing. It's the same, and the way that we think about like guitar lessons or violin lessons or just any private teaching is the perception we should have about cubing. It is an extracurricular, same as anything else, and
Yes.
that's where I've noticed my shift in the cubing market, like the coaching market specifically. I would love to be a professional coach for everybody. Okay, but that's how every guitar player feels. Like the guy. That's how every like basketball coach is. He's like, I want to coach the NBA players.
Exactly. Of
Whatever.
course. I mean,
You want to be the best of the best at your job, and maybe you are, but the market is going to tell you that you're going to put on clinic. Like imagine a basketball coach. Like you're going to put on a clinic for 20 middle schoolers, and you're going to help them build their fundamentals. Maybe you get a professional client or whatever, but it's mainly about like reaching the broadest audience. And I think the perception of cubing, if there was more coaching offered in that sense, would shift as well. If you heard like, oh
mhm.
yeah, there's a kid in my school who gets cubing coaching, and it's not like, wow, he's a genius, like is he gonna go to the world champs, like that's crazy. Everyone goes to worlds, but it's more so like, are you going to worlds? Sorry.
Yeah, that,
Okay,
I'm
cool, cool,
registered.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's more so like this is a normal thing. This isn't like anything extraordinary. I feel like breaking the mystique around it is how we get people to attempt it in the first place.
Yeah, I actually think that is actually a really good point. Is that like, yes, it's seen as cerebral, right? But if anything, I feel like I really want to like clickbait people into thinking that cubing is cerebral, right? Because I know that there are so many parents out there, right, who either want their kid to get off TikTok, um, or just like be smart, right? It's like, what can I do to like make my kid interested in academic things,
Yeah,
right? That's my parents were definitely like this,
yeah,
right? Um, and for that kind of person, it's just like I would love to be able to use the perception that cubing has to be like, yeah, like well, this is like really smart and nerdy. But then you come out and just like, oh, it's like not that hard, right? Like I can do it, anyone can do it, right? And using that, I think that is definitely one way that it can be spread. It's interesting that you mentioned libraries. I should personally do a lot more to like spread cubing because most of the things that I do is like show up to a competition, right? Or like have a competition in the first place. But even something I've been thinking about a lot more is even just like simple cube meetups, right? In
dude,
Hawaii, they have like these big cube meetups, right? Where the community comes out. They have them in the mall, right? So
exactly.
like people can show up and like they can like kind of ask questions, like what's going on. I think that might be something we need to get done here.
Dude, it's crazy. I'm in the Southeast Facebook group.
Uh-huh.
Dude, they have a map of weekly meetups all around the Southeast region. It is
Hmm.
insane. They have meetups all around every week in multiple cities. Even in the Southern Cubing Facebook group, I see messages from moms every week. They're like, "Hey, any Austin Cubers want to meet at the library every week? Any Dallas Cubers want to meet at the library every week?
Yeah.
Houston?" And we just had one, dude. The Louisiana community love it. It's great, but it's very insulary. It's not. There's not a lot of people coming
Mm.
out, and it's very small. But we just had our first meetup in Prairieville. You don't even know what Prairieville is, but Prairieville, bro. What do you mean there's a meetup in Prairieville? That's crazy, dude. That's like a suburb of some smaller city around Baton Rouge. Like it's crazy. And to me that was wild to hear that. The fact that that's even a thing, but there's so much demand for that. And
Yeah.
I think that's a big appeal of cubing too is it's so social. Like I think the
Super, super social.
it's great, and the documentary for what it's any documentary, the Speedcubers documentary, any of the YouTube ones that Why We Cube, any of the things that Chris produced or whatever, do a great job of promoting it in a positive light and showing that
Oh yeah.
literally like, dude, anyone can do it. And I think it's amazing that Max has been such a prominent figure and like an inspiring story. We've been so
Oh,
lucky
totally.
to have like very wholesome, amazing people as the face of cubing, dude. Like Felix into Max is like the best thing you can ask for as a sport.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I just think, if we can promote the more social aspect of cubing, but at that point, like people are already invested. But if we can just say, hey, just show up to this event. You don't even know how to cube. There's going to be kids here that are very chill. They're not going to bully you. Okay. They're going to be very sweet to you. I promise.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So
And if anything, that's the way that it's also good for the kids, right? Because this is like the kids learn like this is like how to interact with other people without like pissing them off. And like,
yeah,
this is how to like make friends and stuff like that. That is the reason why I joined Cube Club at Berkeley, because when I moved from Ohio, I knew no one, right? Like, I had my rando roommate, and he's still one of my best friends to this day. So, that worked out. But like, I wanted to join Cube Club at Berkeley because I knew that like these are people who also like to do what I do. And obviously, like, and I sucked back then, right? But there were also people who sucked who were like my level too. Because it wasn't just like, let's just be like the best cubers. It was more so, let's have fun. And from that, I've gotten so much. And like, I go back to it all the time. It's just like the joining Berkeley Cube Club was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. I literally have like friends for life from that interaction and from cubing overall. So there's so much good that I think cubing has done. And, props to WCA for like also like supporting a lot of that. But I think that there are definitely ways that we can get more involved, get more people involved, and at all levels. Like you don't have to go to an official competition to have fun with cubing, right? The other thing which I think is interesting is like kind of like for chess, right? Like because people get exposed to chess when they're really young, they know about chess, right? Same thing, if people know about cubes and know how to solve a cube, even if you don't participate in a club like right now because of whatever, your parents don't really want you to do cubing, you want to like do your studies or whatever, when you become an adult and there's a cube club that's like near you, that's like another community that then you can then tap into, and kind of like rekindle yourself with all like the new faces in cubing or whatnot, learn a lot of new stuff. The community is so wholesome. Like if we had toxic cubing, the world would definitely be very different.
yeah.
The fact that like I can ask you like, yo, what are some ZBLS cases you recommend? And like I just got this sheet. I'm like, okay, well, great. Like now like here's some stuff I can like take a look at for when I finally fix my F2L and don't just pause every 1 second.
Dude, it's interesting you bring up toxicity in cubing. I
Yeah.
think there's a hot take going around, transitioning away from like entry level. Of course, don't be toxic to the kids coming into the sport.
Yeah.
But I've been hearing from, I think Marinick is the main proponent of this because he's an instigator. Okay, he's
Yeah,
he's an
he
instigator.
definitely is.
He's like, dude, we need trash talk. We need people. We
Mm.
need storylines. We need rivalries. We need whatever. And we have a semblance of that, right? You could say Tymon Max was a rivalry for 3x3 at the time.
Yeah.
You could say Tymon Max is a rivalry for 5x5 right now.
Yeah.
You could say Felix Max was a rivalry at a period as well. We've had some back and forth. Felix versus Kevin in big cubes. Mott's versus Felix, even though overstated. What do you think as a owner of a production company or worker at a production company? What do you think we need beef? Do we need toxicity or trash talk? Like, is that a viable path forward? Do you think it's worthwhile at all?
Here's what I think the answer is yes, but with nuance.
Okay.
I think the types of trash talk that you get, for example, in collegiate football or professional football is relatively appropriate. Maybe a little bit toned down from what they have. But I mean, you'll literally have, and I was watching the Ohio State and Texas game last week, right? And you'll have like these two sides, like the quarterback from Texas and the defensive end from Ohio State used to be roommates when they were both at Ohio State, right? And at the final, like basically clinching play, right? You have both sides, they're going all out, right? They're like trying to tackle these guys too. They're not just trying to like kind of hurt their feelings or get in their heads. They're trying to take them down, right? So you have the defensive end just completely like like he like completely destroys a block, right? Strip sacks the quarterback, takes it back to the house to win Ohio State the game. Afterwards, right? The reporter asked them like, so did you guys exchange any jabs at each other, being known quantities, right? And he says, and the defensive end, Jaxer, he's like, what we said to each other is like, you suck, better luck next time. Laughed it off, and then immediately after the game ended, I went to go see him, congratulate him for a great season that he had, wished him all the best of luck. That is the kind of beef we need in cubing, I think. Where when it comes to the highest moment, both sides are trying really hard and they know what the stakes are, and they will do what it takes in that moment to win out over the other. But once like the lights are off, and everything goes back to normal, out of the stage setting, like everyone is like good friends and is just wholesome to each other and game recognized game. I think that is like the best possible case because you have the people who want to get into cubing or are part of cubing, right? And they want to see the wholesome side, right? They want to see the fact that cubing is like a good place to be, and if you're like 12-second solver like I am, that you're not just instantly going to be run away. But at the other hand, you have the people who are just drama farm, like drama hogs, right? Like they just want to see like the most spicy content at any given time, and like it or not, that's what gets views, right? And
Yeah.
that's what drives engagement. That's what creates storylines, for better or for worse. And I don't think we should manufacture beef in any sort of way. I just think that being able to kind of be a little bit chippy at times, as long as it's all in like good sportsman fun, I think that would be a good thing to have in cubing.
Dude, it's well, especially if we're doing the head-to-head format, which
Yes. Yeah.
what I think lends itself to some trash talk. Dude, I couldn't imagine like a mic'd up moment between like Maddie Tymon at at All Stars finals or whatever. If they were
Yeah.
mic'd up, Tymon's like, because I Maddie sneakily was pacing Tymon crazy. He had some pretty
Yes.
glaring mistakes, but still ended up with like 5.2 average or something, 5.3 average.
Yes.
And I think it was underrated how close he was to just doing exactly what Tymon did. Like he was solving very well. But I could
Yeah.
imagine like Timon's like, "Oh, you messed up that PLO there or something," throwing a little cheeky remark. I think that'd be
Dude,
cool.
Max did this when he got 6x6 mean world record back at NAC. He was sitting next to Nam, and he's like, "Congrats, Nam, on your old world record." Or like,
Dude,
how does it feel, or like, something like that, something to that effect, right?
bro,
um and I think that stuff is hilarious because it shows, because the reason why the beef exists is because the guys care, right?
exactly.
The results matter at the end of the day to these guys, and I think if the results don't matter to them, then why should everyone else care?
Yeah,
So I think like having that is just a way to like show that off. And but I think it's also like just all in good fun, right? Like I think like, I don't really want there to be like a big rift between like competitor A and competitor B, to the point where like, they just don't feel comfortable coming to the same competition with each other. Like that's
yeah,
not the vibe.
yeah.
I think it's more so like just game recognized game and just trying to get into each other's heads just slightly to raise the stakes, make it more interesting.
Yeah, I do think there's a lack of psychological warfare going on at the top level. I think we could really benefit from some of that. No, it's interesting. I think it could be interesting. Especially like I said, especially the head-to-head format, dude. There's so much more room for that type of stuff. Because imagine like the Felix Motts clip. He takes his world record by point oh 0.01 right next to him. That's gotta
Yeah,
suck, dude. But I can't help but feel like potentially Cuban's a little too wholesome. We want to we
sure.
want to share. We want to be very kind and inclusive, and everyone at the top I think has followed Felix's lead in that. If we didn't have Felix as the lead, like the head of the community, or Matt as
Yeah.
the head of the community, we could have been a lot chippier more
Yeah,
consistently.
definitely.
And I won't name names, but there's a handful of top level solvers that I've had to deal with that are like, or I've heard stories that are kind of rude. Some people are of the opinion we need a villain character, especially for building a storyline or whatever. like Dylan Brooks in the NBA.
Mm.
He's just the instigator, bro. He's just saying whatever. He's like, I'm better than LeBron. I locked him up. Blah blah blah. Just like, bro, shut. But you watch him, right? At least you watch him,
Yeah.
and you're like, you keep up with him more than just some random role player on some whatever team. So I don't know. I think it would be cool to see, but like you're right with nuance. I
Yeah,
think the
definitely with no. I'm not advocating for like, and I'm also not advocating for like random kids to go around in competitions and like, tell
dude.
other people that they suck. Like that is like not what's going on
Yeah,
here. Like if
yeah.
that's the message you got for this, you gotta like tune out, like go back to your Cocomelon or whatever, man. Like that is like not it at
I
all.
was gonna say I was at a comp in New England, and there was a kid who was trash talking a delegate, and the kid was like, "Bro, you don't even know TEG1 or whatever. You average
Okay, yeah.
12 seconds on 3x3," and I was like, "Look." The delegate was like, "Bro, I'm too old to care about this. I put on this comp for you, bro. Just be
Yeah.
chill." And I get it, but that leads me to my follow up is like, if we want these storylines, is the age of our competitors a problem? Like, if we can you imagine? Because Little League baseball exists and it's decently watched. The Little League World Series was very popular at a period in time,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I don't think it's entirely. It doesn't entirely stunt the growth of the sport if that's the case, but does having the best people in the world that is sport be children who still hang out with their mom like cause any problems for storylines or like any ethical concerns? Like I put dude, if I want to get the views, I just put Yihang in my thumbnail, and that kid's gonna be 10. That kid's 10. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I think it's really interesting. I have like a somewhat nuanced take in it where I don't think we should ban children from competing. That's not what I'm going for here. But I do think that there is a consequence for the top solvers being younger. And by younger, I don't even mean like being like high school, like 16, 17 or whatever, like literally 11 years old. And the consequence I think is I think that it is somewhat dangerous to be labeled as like a kid's activity. Because while there are a lot of positives to being a kid's activity, like you can, for example, go into schools and say like, hey, like this is like a kid's activity. A lot of kids like participate in this type of stuff, right? And it's good for kids also to um like we mentioned before, like build motor control and like spatial awareness and whatnot, and just for the social aspect. I think it is tough as a marketer, or like if you're like a sponsor who wants to get into cubing, right? I think it's a little bit tough to see like, oh, this is a kid's activity, right? So that already excludes like a lot of sponsors. And then there's some people who just don't want to get involved because of liabilities and whatnot. It definitely gets complicated. And the biggest concern that I have is that people will just think that it's not legit,
Yeah.
that people will just be like, "Oh, this is for kids," and therefore, like, it diminishes people like Luke Garrett, Greiser, Timon, who are like practicing like extremely hard and who are like world class, right? Um, but then it's just like, but then you just get hit with the Stu Cube video ending every single time, where it's just like, yeah, 6 year old is just better than you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And like I think it's really really tough to I think it's really tough as someone from the outside looking in to be like, "Oh, I don't really care. Like this is like not something that I should take seriously because it's something that for children."
Yeah.
Um Even though like, these children are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong, right? Like they're literally performing better than adults, right? So it's not like, that it is like literally like a baby sport. But we even like I mean even like within cubing, we all say like, "Oh, we're just turning plastic puzzles at the end of the day," right? And that has like a negative reception, I think,
I
overall.
hate
It just makes
that,
people think
bro.
that we're not serious.
Yeah, I, because first I hate that sentiment because you can say that
Mm,
with literally anything, bro. Oh, you're putting a ball in a hoop, bro. I don't care. I'm getting paid $80 million to do it. What does it matter?
yeah.
Like at the end of the day, everything we do can be boiled down to you're just X doing. It's so silly to me. I think it's very infuriating, especially as somebody who like puts so much time and effort and money into it consistently. to have to hear that. Or like when I'm crashing out on stream because I'm trying to get a good average, and then kids tell me, a kid younger than me is like, it's just plastic, little bro. I'm like, I can't even, dude. It boils my blood. But yeah, definitely like the age thing. I see what you're saying. It can definitely delegitimize us. And you know, most like, if we want money in the sport, imagine like an esports sponsor. Even Red Bull. Red Bull probably couldn't even come in as a sponsor nowadays.
I think, yeah, as definitely not outside of the US. I mean, there are places where you cannot sell energy drinks to children, you know, for better or for worse, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There could be some like legal liabilities for
Yeah,
marketing
yeah.
energy drinks to children, or you know, if there's a multitude of things that could make it harder, and we already have a hard time getting funding as is, and maybe our funding comes from like in China, it's like there's an amusement park, Mofun Land, and
Yeah,
there's
Mofinland, yeah.
stores or whatever, and you can find investment in that sense. But I think the job is already very hard. The age of the competitors makes it even harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And here's another thing to top that off with. Like, if you're looking for money, right? Which, you know, I think every sport slash hobby that wants to make it into the mainstream is, right? At the end of the day. If you're looking for money, you don't ask a 10-year-old for money, because the
yeah.
same 10-year-old that will invest in cubing is also going to invest in like pet rocks or like silly bands, right?
Yeah.
And you know, like these things are like they just don't have the capital to invest, right?
Yeah.
The people who are going to invest are going to be people who have expendable income, and you know, the corporations, right? And these corporations are not run by children; they're run by adults.
Yeah.
And unless like you can like market it as like, oh, this is like for children, right? So you can get the children interested in it, and then like their parents are the ones who can pay for it. I think another big problem is like, I don't think that there are enough adults in cubing. I think that there's like it's really weird to go to a competition. Like I literally show up to a competition, right? Or I tell my mom, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna go to this competition near Dayton, and my mom's like, okay, have fun. My dad's like, you're gonna go compete with a bunch of middle schoolers? He's like, do you really get anything out of that? Like, and then like it's just weird to hear. And maybe it's just me also, like as an adult now, right?
Yeah.
Because when I started, I was also a middle schooler, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think it definitely discourages adults from entering the scene, and that's not what we're trying to do either. Like, we want cubing to be accessible to all, but I think at some point we have kind of just taken this default sense, like, oh, this is for kids. The Rubik's Cube was a toy to begin with. But meanwhile, I think cubing got its start in collegiate cube clubs,
Exactly.
and now collegiate cubing is coming back.
Dude.
And I think
exactly.
I think it's huge. I think it's so huge to get people who of like our-ish age, right? Who are like, you know, these young adults who have like this hobby and who can like actually like do stuff for this hobby. Because if you're a kid, you can't even reserve a venue on your own. You have to get your parents to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. I yeah, there's kids that are always talking about like, oh, how do I host a comp? And it's like they can't drive. They have to get their parents to sign the contract and everything. It's very hard. And
Yeah.
you know, we were on +3 talking about this. Like, if I was trying to start cubing now, I would never do it. I couldn't imagine being in Rosman's shoes right now trying to
Yeah.
get into cubing. It would feel so alienating. Even me, who's been in the scene, like you said, I've started when I was 10. It's been half my life I've been cubing at this point. I feel out of place. Like, why? I've been here longer than all you kids have been alive. Why do I feel out of place, dude?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's definitely something to be said for the fact that cubing is for all ages. It is child friendly, not for kids. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah, not explicitly for kids.
Exactly, right? It's everybody can do it, and you on the podcast brought up something that I just had never thought about, of like, we have a adult marketing problem. Like, it is very hard to say, hey, come to this event with 50 kids and hang out with one person who's like significantly faster than you. Maybe that's daunting for you to talk to them or whatever. Or maybe it's, or like, I coach a handful of older people, like in their 30s, late 20s, 40s, because they have the disposable income to actually afford that.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I just couldn't imagine being in that spot. I will say, my first comp, I vividly remember there was a guy probably in his 40s talking to me in the waiting area, and I didn't think anything
Yeah.
of it. But like, that's kind of, you want to stay in your age group. I feel I don't think parents are always super comfortable with that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard because you just want people that are relatable, and I think when I was a teen, like I nowadays, like there's a few people in my local community who are people I would never interact with outside of a cubing environment,
Mm.
that are like 13 years old, up and come 10 years old, upcoming in my community, and
Yeah.
I talk to them and I respect them because we have this mutual ground of, hey, we are of the same community. We have the same hobby.
Hmm.
I want to see you succeed.
Hmm.
But it's not like I can develop a very deep friendship with them, right? I feel like
Right.
it's hard for me to do that. But when I was younger, I had friends that were like, I was probably 13. I had friends that were like in college, and that wasn't weird to me at all. Looking at it
Right.
now, like, not to say it's weird, but it's just from an outsider perspective, I think it's hard to kind of just see that being. There's not that much common ground there. Like the only common ground is, hey, we cube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's interesting, and you bring up a great point with like the collegiate cubing stuff. I think that's great. Not only just it's a space to be involved and compete outside of the WCA format, which, like we've talked about, isn't the only thing that exists.
Right.
Um, it's just really good to show that, yeah, like there's older people who are into it. And when I was coming up, this wasn't a problem because everybody who was good was collegiate age, you know what I mean, or high school at
Right.
least, right?
Right.
It's only in recent years has this really been something that we need to start discussing. So, do you have like how would you market to an older population? And like follow up question, like how do we make cubing cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, I think so first of all, I'll start this off with I don't have the best answer. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
Like I think it's something that we need to figure out as
yeah,
like a community, like what can we do? Because I think it's at least a mild problem of sorts, right? Um how do we make cubing cool? I think the way to make cubing cool is to have personalities. There's I think a big reason why people watch Melee or Ultimate, right? Is sure like it's like, oh, I like this game. Like I played this game at parties, like I understand what's going on kind of, right? But I think a big reason why people can get behind players. Like Mango has an aura. Like he literally has he has like a following just because of his personality. He is who he is, right? And same goes for all the other like top melee players. I mean I like Zane because I think he's a cool guy. Like and you know he plays Marth and I think Marth is cool. But like he at the end of the day, if he were like an asshole, then I'd be like, yeah, dude, forget this guy. Like
yeah,
who cares? Like I don't vibe with him, right? And I think that has been relatively absent from cubing in cubing's history. Like we've had just like the good guy, which is great, you know, like it's good to have the guy who is nice both on camera and off camera. But I think that there is room for diversification, and I feel like we are starting to get to there now. It is only recently that that competitors have been able to kind of like flaunt their style or differentiate themselves in many ways. I think Greiser is a really good example of this. And you know, I think I think he's realized that like his original method of which was just like super like Omega Sigma grind set was probably not like the fullest thing that he wanted to do. At least that's what it looked like he mentioned at his year end video. Um, but I think he has definitely established himself as like, yeah, this is just his mindset as it pertains to cubing. I think Maddie has also done a little this to some extent too. Being kind of like the Da Vinci Man himself, he's just like, I use cubing as a way to further just like my brain development and my development in lots of different skills. I think we see this from the Chinese cubers too. There's a reason why I'm a big Bopun fan, right? Sure, like Bopun, he's a great solver, right? But at the end of the day, he has fun with cubing, and he is able to display that in a way that like not other people can. We call Shruggy the aura singularity for a reason. He shows up there and he his personality. Yeehan when he gets a world record with the smiley sweatpants or whatever, that's personality. And I think that that cubing is like going in that direction now. We are getting like to the personality level. That's why people watch Hikaru, right? Because he has personality. People like Magnus because he has personality. He's willing to do things that are like slightly different than what everyone else has done. And I think that going in that direction, I think will just make cubing cooler overall because you'll see people who you'll see people and they're at the top and then people will be like, I want to be like that guy. I want to have like great turning like Nom, sure, but I also want to have the style that Nom does. Or like, I want to be able to entertain like Dilly Millie does and like be funny like this guy, right? And I think that that's what we will end up going towards. And I think that's what every sport ends up having. You always, even Scrabble has Nigel Richards, right?
True.
Who'll just show up to like the Spanish Scrabble tournament and just destroy, right? That's a sense of personality in and of itself too.
Yeah.
So I think that is what we really need for cubing. I think people need to build their own personal brand, if you will.
Yeah.
And streamers have done this for a while. That's one way to build a personal brand, build a following. YouTubers definitely do this also. JPerm definitely has like a brand that he has, right? And people knew him for that.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're gonna see, and that's I think how cubing will be cool.
Dude, you bring up streaming. I maybe a little biased again. Think that streaming and cubing go together perfectly. There is
Yes.
like not
Yes.
a better stream thing to do than cube. Cause sure, you need to be able to have like either you need to be fast and you have a built-in audience because you're fast,
Mhm.
or you're entertaining and then you just cube in the background. Like whatever.
Yeah.
I am also a streamer, so whatever. But I think it's done great for my brand. I think it's done great for
Mhm.
me as a competitive solver. I think it's just overall like peanut butter jelly, perfect, love it. I would love to see more top solvers stream. Tymon used to stream. Felix streamed a handful.
Yeah.
I think
Greiser has videos now. Like he's been uploading like crazy recently.
yeah, he's been uploading some practice sessions. But dude, I would love to see Greiser stream, bro.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
Exactly. I think people would love to interact with him on stream and just like poke his brain because he's a very. I don't want to say he's like private because I feel like he's very open, but he's
surprisingly more open than I thought because I thought that he was like hyper focused and like
Yeah.
everything like that. But then I just like quickly chat with him at this competition in Ohio, and like we're hitting it up,
Exactly.
right? So
yeah, it's for someone he's very open, but I feel like he's very like reserved in the same sense in the same
Yeah.
way. It's a tricky way to describe him, but yeah, and like I think people would love to see Luke Garrett stream. There are personalities in the
Yeah.
community, right? Who have their brand. But that's what I was saying before. Like, is it a problem that like can you get behind a 10-year-old for real? Like, can you?
Oh, there's no way, dude. If Young is streaming, then I don't know, man.
That's what I'm
dude,
saying.
I don't even know if I would watch Caleb Chen. Like,
I can. I don't know. Can you get behind? Like, can you really like buy a jersey for a 10-year-old? I think maybe.
Yeah, like,
but it's different, right? It's
Yeah.
harder to sell, I think, and that's what I was saying with like the age of competitors. Like, I think it kind of throws a wrench in that. But dude, the reason I asked can cubing be cool is because someone in my chat in my stream was like, dude, do you think cubing can be cool for the alt and emo kids? Like scootering went from cringe to cool, and I was like, first off, scootering skull emoji, lol, Vine boom. But then I was like, that brings up an interesting point because I think that goes hand in hand with what we were saying, like getting older people involved.
Yeah.
I would say I'm like more of a alternative person, but I think I grew into that with my love of cubing. And I don't know how we even market it. Like, do we sell cubes in Hot Topic or something? I don't know, dude.
Actually, I think that would work pretty well.
Dude, yeah, you think?
Next sponsor, next big sponsor for cubing.
Bro, if I got a Hot Topic sponsor, that would be so lit, dude. Oh
that would be fun. That would be really, really fun.
I'm always thinking about non-keeping sponsors because I think that's the way we want to eventually transition,
Yes.
right? That's how you
Yes.
get more
Yes.
money in. You get one person to buy in, then they all come flooding in, dude. It's the first one that's the hardest, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. But I mean, there's been great progress on that end too, right? I mean, like Max is literally sponsored by Prime, right? And so,
Dude,
say whatever you will about Logan Paul, right? And
bro's got
maybe
the
you don't
Prime
really care.
model. Oh my god,
Dude, I got this from Cube Camp. That's where I got it from. All
that's
right, like I'm
crazy.
not a shill or anything, but yeah, I got it from Cube Camp. So,
Okay.
and now I just carry it around. I think it's just funny because sometimes kids will be like, "Oh, do you drink Prime too?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I just have to
Oh, every day, bro. 10 bottles a
every
day.
day."
Buy a pack.
I'll pull out a cube and be like, "Yeah, I could do this because I drink Prime." It's like, whoa.
Uh,
No, but I think you're absolutely right. I think the non-cubing sponsor is huge. At some point, you had like some sponsorship with like some hand warmers company,
I am an
right? I thought that was super
affiliate
cool too.
marketer for a hand warmer company.
Mm.
And I got a keyboard for free. I'm trying to get a chair right
Oh yeah,
now. I'm trying to get a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
chair
Dude,
because
I think keyboards, I think gaming chairs, like I think all of these like gaming adjacent sponsors, like in
yeah.
companies, I think it works. I think it works pretty well. I mean, most cubers are gamers, so
Well, I reached out to Traxxas too for a sponsorship. They don't know walled me. They didn't respond. But
okay.
I was like, dude, I use your lube all the time. Bro, put a Traxxas logo on my shirt. I'll go up there, bro. I'll do whatever
Yeah,
you want.
easy, right?
Dude, but honestly, my chair's falling apart. I've been looking. I'm trying to find Herman Miller's email. Bro,
Yo,
send me an
wait,
error
Herbert
line.
Miller, dude, Herbert Miller doesn't work so well. It's
Herman
like
Miller, Dylan Miller.
exactly,
But
exactly.
I'm looking for something because I think that's also great, right? Like for someone who cubes a lot, like I need a good chair or else it's cooked, like for real.
Yeah, I mean, actually though, yeah.
Um, but the way that people have been talking about, I think the main path forward to get non-keeping sponsors that people think
Mm.
is we need to get to the Olympics, which I have my thoughts. We talked about it a bit beforehand with Mayor Nick. Mayor Nick was like, well, once you're IOC recognized, then the money comes rolling in, baby. What are your thoughts? Does cubing need to join the Olympics? What if no? What should we be prioritizing outside of that?
Yeah, okay. So he's not wrong. If cubing was to join the Olympics, there would be huge opportunities, right? Just because you have so many eyes on you. Like the Olympics is like a huge talking point. I was literally in Hawaii watching breakdancing in the Olympics.
That's sick.
Like it was just nuts. Like who talks about breakdancing otherwise, right? So he is right on that end, right? The number of eyes that you get, and it definitely would do a long ways to growing the sport. But I don't think that the Olympics is the only way. And I think that I don't think it's necessarily the best way either. I think that we've already seen that, being aligned with IOC, it has consequences, right? Um, Eventually, if we want to follow all the IOC conventions, we got to drug test our cubers. You're telling me we're going to go drug test 20? You're telling me we like I'm gonna need like a blood sample from Yufeng or from
Ho
Hansen?
fun, please, please.
Like, what are we talking
That's
about?
crazy.
Is
Yeah.
that really is this is something that we say a lot in this little echo chamber I'm in. We call it's part of the plot, right? Is this going to be part of the plot of cubing? When we write the history books about how cubing went big time, is IOC going to be involved? I don't know. I don't think necessarily. I do think a lot of things that we need to do in order to get there are useful. For example, like standardizations of rules and practices, things like this. In general, just like growing the sport, I think that's important. But I think we can attain the goals that we want, which basically is just more money so we can grow the community, right? More money so that it can be used appropriately to create the cubing economy, right? Because you can't have an economy if there's no money in it, right? Like it's just dead. Um, I think that those things can happen without necessarily being part of the Olympics. Do I think it's a complete waste of time? No. Do I think it's the only thing we should be focusing on? Also, no.
Yeah. I think there's so many proof of concepts of sports, brain sports that exist outside of the Olympic environment. right?
Is
Like,
chess in the Olympics? Like,
no,
and chess
exactly.
is huge. The thing
Exactly.
is, everyone has heard about the recent chess like world champion and the recent controversies going on with chess. Chess isn't in the Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I understand the sentiment, right? I think the end goal, good. The means in which we reach it, I do not think need to be through the IOC. We've seen what the IOC has done. There's been plenty of controversies around it. I think we need to try to do the, I don't want to say esports route. I think esports has seen its woes as of recent, right? The money's kind of dried up,
Yeah.
whatever. But Rocket League, the way Tetris is operating,
Yeah.
the way, like we talked about, bowling, other stuff has more traditional money coming in or whatever. I think those are key into getting cubing to grow, like we've talked about, and it's mainly just eyes, right? It's how can
Yeah.
we make
Yeah.
streaming more accessible, but it's also, it doesn't matter if you're streaming a comp where the fastest person is not even sub 10. No hate to that person, but that's not the product people want. So
Right.
it goes back to, are we making the product good? Well, if there's no comps with top level solvers consistently, then we never have a good product, right?
Right. Or at least you don't have the best marketable product, because at the end of the day, that is what people will want to see. They want to see the best solvers. Once you watch one stream where you see this guy get a 3-second solve, all of a sudden me getting a 15-second solve is not
It
nearly as
doesn't
impressive
hit,
anymore.
dude. You need a
It's
bigger high. Like,
exactly. Or you would need at least need something that's competitive. It
yeah,
can be competitive if you watch two 15-second competitors go up against each other, right? But when that same 15-second solver is going up against someone who's averages 6 seconds, it's like there's no point in like kind of streaming that matchup, so to speak, right?
exactly.
Well, okay, I won't say that there's no point. I think there are loads of reasons why you want to stream local competitions. And this is something that I believe in terms of like Cubers Live, right? I love streaming local competitions because it allows people who wouldn't normally be able to get onto a live stream to be on a live stream. And if that means that like someone's grandma can watch them compete, even if it's just one solve, I think that's great, because I think that does a lot for people's confidence and being like, yeah, cubing is fun. Look, I'm famous, right? Like I was on YouTube. Like people can point to that, and that grandma is gonna share it with like all the people in, I don't know, her retirement home or whatever, and then they're gonna send it to like all the way down the chain, like in their WhatsApp groups or whatever the boomers use these days. And that's another way to get eyes on it. I think it's definitely more indirect, but I think that that's another conversation where tiered competitions come in. That way you can support all level of competitors, right? You want the top level competitors because that's where the biggest eyes, that's where the most eyes are going to be on. But at some point you definitely want to stream your random locals, because that's where the next top solvers are going to come from.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, I would love if every comp was streamed. Ideally, we would do the speed stacking route where we have cameras at every station and that's a live feed somewhere, whatever.
Hmm.
Don't think the infrastructure is there. I think it's really tricky, and I think to get the best product, you have to start at the top. If the top tier comps are being streamed, then the locals are being streamed, right? I think that makes the most sense.
I mean, that goes into like what the majors should look like, because I think every major championship has to be streamed. We've seen that at least recently. I actually don't know if African. I don't think that one was streamed, but I think every major championship should get streamed.
Oh, for sure.
Because I think that's ultimately it's exactly what it is, right? You have the top solvers who are going to show up there and who are just going to put on a show. I think it's more valuable to have, if you're going to put a large concerted amount of effort in something, put it into that and make sure that the stream is a banger, right?
Oh, for
sure. I think like the last year in 2024, we had some really good streams.
Oh yeah.
Like obviously I think NAC was the best stream of the year. I think Euros was a pretty good stream all in all. I have some things that I think personally could be improved, but I thought it was a great stream. Like think about how much exposure Keeping got from that. The Oceanic stream, I thought Asians was a great stream overall too.
Asians was a banger. I think NAC in terms of production was better, but I think Asians, just the results and the competitiveness made it a lot more enticing to watch. Dude, I was about to stay until 4 a.m. to watch Asians finals.
Exactly.
Like I was so ready to do that, but I had to coach the next day, so I could. But oh, dude, seeing my goat Hansen pop off it live would have been the best feeling ever, dude. But I couldn't stay up that late. But it was so sick.
Exactly.
I had to watch it back.
Yeah, exactly. And it creates moments like that or like, Rihan getting WR2. It's just like, all right, like that just exists. Also slept on South American champs that had a live stream that, was pretty good too.
I did
They
watch
just
that.
unfortunate that it got sandwiched between NAC and Euros,
Yeah.
um but yeah, I think like that is like a big way to get more eyes into the product. Is have a stream and have the stream be consistently high quality. Because back in the day, you would have like U.S. Nationals 2017 streamed by Mental Block, and it was just the only stream around. And like actually that stream was revolutionary for its time. But looking back on it, it's just not an acceptable quality anymore.
Yeah. Sure.
But for better, I think it's just because the game has stepped up.
Okay. On the topic of majors, there's been a lot of talk on like the open and invitational format. We've
Mm-hmm.
touched on this a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like opens or majors, or how how do we make majors simultaneously competitive at all times, but also inclusive to everybody? Because I think that's the hard part.
I think it's really tough to do both in the same event
Yeah.
because one way you could do it, right, is you have the World Championship where the first several days of the World Championship is a convention where you have like, you can have 10,000 people show up, right? And you take like 5 days to get through the majority of the competitors. Most people will do like one round of 3x3. Maybe they can compete in like 2x2 pyramids, some other things. And otherwise, just vibe, right? You could do that and then have the last day or last several days be like top level competition, like the worlds that we have now,
Yeah.
essentially. You could do that. The problem is that is ridiculously expensive. It is very, 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 very expensive to put on something like that consistently. So I think that's really tough. But you could just have a similar concept, but separate the two. You can have the world championship. You can keep the world championship as is, right? Which is basically just a big convention. Um, and then have another championship, which is invitational only, where you can do head to head for all events if you want to. Make a bracket for all events. Do that over the course of a couple days. You don't need a mega venue. You need like a summit style basement, maybe
Yeah.
something bigger than that. But yeah, you could do that. You can save money on that end at least. Put a bunch of effort into getting that sponsored, getting the eyes on that one, live stream that one, and there you go. And you could make an argument of like, okay, well, why would anyone show up to the convention? Well, why do we show up to Worlds right now? It's because it's a meeting of all the speed cubers around the world. That is the majority. That is the reason why the majority of cubers show up to Worlds. And of course, there's the high level competition as well, which I'm going to be super stoked to see all the finals. But at the end of the day, most people are just there to meet their friends from Asia, from Europe.
Yeah.
The other thing, which I think you could change about the majors, is I am a proponent of turning our majors into convention/conferences. And what I mean by that is I want to see GAN announce the next 4x4 at
Yes,
Worlds.
dude.
I want
Yes.
to I want to see them get like some side theater stage while the rest of competing is going on. I want to see Mr. GAN give a presentation about the next GAN 4x4. Like Apple keynote presentation.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
want that because you can sell that time also. You can say like we're going to give you an hour to give a presentation about whatever you want. And if you end up giving a stupid presentation, then you just waste your money, right? So that it gives an incentive to give like something interesting that the cubing community cares about. The seminars that have been done at previous nationals, for example, time-based announcement, that was pretty cool. I mean, that was done from inside the community, right? Imagine what GAN could announce. Imagine what the Cubicle could announce. If you give them that kind of stage. Imagine what Rubik's could announce, right? Rubik's could come out and say like, we're starting Red Bull World Cup again. And here's what it's going to look like. At the end of the 2023 Worlds, they had like a mini moment like this, announcing where the next World Championship was going to be. Stuff like that. The WCA can get involved too. It doesn't even have to be cubing. You could just make it Mind Sports Convention, basically, Have a chess tournament off on the side.
Yeah.
Have speed stacking. You could do a lot with it, I think. But in order for all these ideas to play out, I think you need to separate the idea that this type of convention is going to be the pinnacle of competitive speed cubing.
Yeah.
I think my impression is that it's going to be very, very tough to meld both of them together.
Yeah, for sure. I agree, and there needs to be a split of some sort. But I think it also makes the experience better for the person who's not making finals, right? Why would I want to go to a 5-day event when I'm only competing day one, and then what do I do for the rest of the 4 days?
And pay $200 for it.
No,
right?
exactly. Like, why am I paying to compete in something that like is very tricky to actually go far in, right? I agree entirely with what you're saying. I think we can get booths for companies. I think we can like imagine Moyu and Chi and Gan. Everybody comes out to the Worlds. They set up their booth. They have their prototypes of their most recent cubes. They get public. They do market research. They do whatever. They do announcements. We can do seminars. You could do like recently we've done panels for top level solvers or meet and greets. You know, there's so many. We're not limited to this is a competition. It needs to expand to this is a convention and a meeting of everybody in the space. Maybe you could get coaches from Cubing Life Academy, Cubing GG to do sessions on the spot. You know, you could. There's so many possibilities, and I think we're limiting ourselves in that sense of just we do comp, we have vendor, we have seminar after, we have like there's a degree of it there where like, you know, there was trivia at NAC and whatever, and like that was cool, and there's some fun stuff, but you definitely can get more out of it, and I think we're just not really reaching our capacity for what we can do in that sense. So that's a little unfortunate to see.
What I would love to see is if like I would love to see Worlds turn into E3. Like old E3 or like CES.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, CES.
Like that would be amazing. Like if we would literally have our own version of CES. How cool would that be? You can have like reporters or whatever, like right? You can have cubing reporters show up, right? Like and let's say you run like a cubing commentary channel. You could show up there and interview like top personalities. You can interview like companies, Mr. Gad himself.
Dude.
Like that would just be epic, right? I think that I think it would be epic. Maybe objectively, perhaps, who knows? But
no, I think it's sick.
I think there's a lot of potential. And I think that's why I think we live in the most exciting era for cubing. I think that there's so much we can do with cubing now that we've experienced so much amazing growth post-pandemic. And I think it's all ours for a taking. And ours, by ours, I mean like the speed cubing community as a whole.
Yeah.
There's like never been more people who have been more involved. There have never been it has never been so easy to get involved in speed cubing. We sit at a very interesting time where it looks like China is going to like overtake the entire of speed cubing, which, you know, might be good, might be bad. I think it's very, very interesting. World Championships 2025, I think, is going to be really fun, but I think it's also going to be a big change for cubing.
Interesting. I still feel like 2025 is going to be. I feel like 2025, hopefully, is the last of a dying format. That's why. I hope there's more drastic change in 2027. I mean, I like what they're doing. The thing is, 2025 is trying too hard to be best of both worlds, right? They're still trying to be the everybody, but also, not everybody can go. I feel like that pisses me off. Worlds, I would be pissed if like I wanted to go to Worlds because I wanted to see Tymon and Yihang and Zhuani, but then I can't go because I didn't qual. I'm not going to pay $1,000 just to show up and watch. No, if I want to do that, you got to give me more than just I sit at a table talking to people about cubing all day. You got to give me like an announcement. You got to give me an experience. You got to give me a panel, and then the community on top is just like the icing on the cake. There needs to be more attractions if it's going to be an open. But if you're gonna, don't be in the middle. That's why you gotta commit one way or another. And you can do both, just not at the same time, like you were saying. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that really, I would be pissed if I was somebody who was like just out of phase 4 and I reg instantly, but I can't go because whatever. And sure, there's quals beforehand, but like there's quals previously. But I would love for Worlds to be inclusive for everybody, but also like we need to also make it like we were talking about an invitational format. You can do a double elim bracket for a course of 3 days. That's what a fighting game tournament does, right?
Yeah, easily. You can do that with a ton of people too. You could do that with like 100 people.
Exactly. Like you could do top
throw
64.
Pools into the mix too, and then like now all of a sudden you've blown it up to like where you could have like probably 200 people if you do it in this format.
Exactly. Like it could still be sick. It's just I don't know if we'll ever be able to do it. I feel the sky is the limit, and that's the most exciting thing about where we are right now.
Yeah.
It's just about who's in charge and what do they want to pursue, and is it going to be what's best for us? I think I'm kind of a doomer. Maybe I'm slightly cautionary of what it will end up looking like. I think the prospects are very exciting. Whether or not it'll play out in the manner I think is best, not that I know it's best, but the way I think is best, I think it remains to be seen. But I'm hopeful. 2027 is going to be something deviation from the norm, I guess, of the format we've had currently.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this goes back to something that I've started to say a little bit. One of the greatest assets of the WCA is that it is the World Cube Association. Like we literally have competitions around the world in every time zone in like 60 countries or whatever last year, right? That is incredible, and there's so much diversity in cubing. One of the biggest problems that the WCA has, it is the fact that it's the World Cube Association.
Yeah.
It is very, very difficult to create standards, procedures, regulations that will work across the insane like socioeconomic band that cubing covers, right? You have cubing in like literally every single stratum of society. And it's really tough to tell people, be like, yeah, let's switch to 4-pad mode because there's loads of places that are using the Gen 4 timers, and then we got to upgrade the timers now. And that's just a cost that doesn't scale the same way in every single country. Or there are like cultural differences in the ways that like people think that like, oh, like I want our national championship to really celebrate our, the people who are of this nation, and not necessarily the top solvers. There's lots of cultural differences. So I think it's really tough, and that's why a lot of things tend to be pretty slow in the WCA. But it's for better or for worse, and I think that we can learn from the ways that things currently happen, and just change the culture around it.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Yeah, let's hear it. Hot takes.
WCA, we've seen the books. We know you got money in an account somewhere, bro. Cough it up. Okay. Oh my god, dude. Where's it going? Give me some of the dude. At least give us 4-pad should have been happen, bro. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I don't know what's going on, but I've seen the books. You got 300K in a bank account somewhere, at least. But use it. I don't know.
Okay, I mean,
countries, dude.
To be fair, the WCA does use the funds. It's not like it's all being hoarded up by like one person or whatever.
Well,
it does go around to some extent.
My apologies.
No, I mean, I think it's like a reasonable criticism, right? But there you go. Like that's the other thing, right? Like we have 300,000 like sitting around, right? Which is good. You can say that like, wow, like that's quite the sum of money. That's actually more money than a lot of people will ever see, right? But on the other hand, if you want to run a worldwide sports organization and break into the mainstream, it's not quite chump change, but it's not going to get there. We're talking 7 digits at least, if not 8, in order to like fully realize. Like think about how much money chess brings in. Mm-hmm. Surely it has to be at least 7, if not 8 digits.
Yeah, for sure. And tournament organizers are getting paid in chess, which is not true in cubing. I've been of the opinion, fuck it, make WCA for profit, bro. Why do we need to abide by this non-profit standard? I understand that there's the old guard saying, well, WCA is inclusive for everybody. We have the mission statement. We don't need to be for profit. It ruins the community. Dude, if I was a TO, if you want comps in a region, you have to incentivize comps being held in a region. Like,
Mhm.
why should delegates have to pay out of pocket? I mean, they sure they get some reimbursement, but why should I be net negative doing this for my community?
Yeah, if you're an organizer, it's actually kind of crazy because if you're an organizer without the backing of like some regional organization or sub-regional organization, you basically take all of the risk. You are the ones who are like signing off on like the venue contract, doing the liability, working out all the insurance stuff, and you are just not allowed by the WCA's code of conduct to like explicitly profit from it. You can like reimburse yourself like printing and things like that, but you can't like end up with excess funds in any. You can't end up with excess funds and like just take that out of the community essentially.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a tough ask. I mean, most people who organize competitions want to do it because they want their event to show up. Like I really like OH. No one else holds OH. Okay, fine. I will ask my school principal if we can use the cafeteria to have competition with OH. And loads of competitions happen still.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely changes the game a little bit, and there may be incentive. Obviously there's always going to be bad actors, right? And for that we definitely want to put rules into place to prevent people from just stealing our money, because we want it to go back to the community in some way, shape, or form. But at the
For
same
sure.
time, it is tough when you end up being an adult and realizing, yeah, I'm gonna spend 8 hours of my day at this competition, sure, because it's my hobby, right? But then on top of that, I have to spend like 20 to 40 hours putting together like all the paperwork, getting all the venue stuff, working with all the delegates, getting all the equipment, and then all the post competition stuff. Um, and you have to do it for free, and it can be a tough ask for a lot of people.
And dude, I understand. Do it for the love of the game. Money should go back to the thing, but at least make it like a split. Like 15% of profits from a competition go back to the organizer. 15% go to the delegate. Once I mean, I guess maybe what I'm saying is conflicting here, but of course we don't want to make cube competitions like prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're doing it for money, then you increase whatever, which can put strain on the community. Sure, fine. Maybe I'm too kind-hearted, and I think people wouldn't abuse it in that sense. To maybe extremely hot take here, though. UKCA, we are aware of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
James Malloy intentionally raised the registration fees because he was misappropriating funds. However, the UKCA community did not die. It was
Yeah.
thriving more than it ever had, with people not knowing money was being skimmed off the top. And I think if you give a man a sliver, he's not gonna want to go full I'm vengeance Batman, steal all the money crazy. I just think
Yeah.
maybe he felt wronged and slighted for all the work he'd been putting in for years and years and years. And not to say it's I understand the sentiment, right? If you've done so much for your community and then you just get absolutely nothing from it, kind of cringe. Kind of cringe. And the fact
Yeah.
that everyone's saying, no, you should never be able to make money from this. Why? I don't know. Stay broke, I guess. Dude, I don't know, dude. Cube
It's
gamble, I don't know.
it's easy to say when you don't have to support yourself, right? Like if you're a kid, right? Or you're in college, it's just like, yeah, like whatever. Like it doesn't really matter because I'm already like because you just don't see money go in and out anyway, right? But when you have to pay rent or like you have to support your family, right? Like, there's a reason every single hour that we spend doing anything is valuable. And there's a reason why like you want to spend that time doing stuff. Maybe it's for love of the game. And that's what we're all in it for because we all love speed cubing. But at the end of the day, there may be we may be missing out by like not giving back to the community and not giving back to those who, do some of the most work for the community. Um, I think that's worthwhile exploring at least.
All right. Um, last thing I had on the agenda was cubing betting pog. Let the children gamble on God.
He's reading this off the exact thing. That's exactly what he wrote on here. So word for word.
Dude. Hey, look, if you're not gonna give me money from the dues, let me bet on the kids, bro. Let me bet on the kids. I gotta make the money somewhere, bro.
Something that's really interesting is I think that this has been like floated around for like a long time. And it's like mainly because like it's a sport, right? And whenever you have like a sport, there's always people who think that they know what's going on, right? And it's like, yeah, dude, like you have no idea what's happening. Like, yeah, like Hansen Yu is like the guy. Like he is the one who's going to pop off next. And then someone is gonna be like, no, dude, you're smoking it, right? Like it's gonna be Joukun. I think it would be really, really interesting to see betting and cubing. I think that there are probably a lot of hurdles to this. Like, personally, I don't know how I feel about betting on Yihung, man. Like, that I think is tough. But maybe that goes into the fact that we have like these like young kids who are like part of this community, right? And the other thing is like, do you want to expose them to that kind of stuff? I can see a very good reason why you don't want to, right? Because there's lots of vices that go with it. But if you imagine like golf, for example, Vegas has books on golf. Vegas has books on darts. Nowadays, when I watch a football game, they talk about the betting lines like more than they ever have before. Now that sports betting is legal. So I think it could certainly be a thing for cubing also. I think I would like to see it done in a way that is nuanced and careful to not have people abuse it.
I will say my favorite cubing betting story. Not gonna name names here. Worlds 2023.
I know what you're talking about.
After Sol 5, Drunken Cuber stands up after Yihang gets WPA and he says, "Give me my money! Give me my money!" And I see a crowd of people walk to him and he's collecting his cash, man. Dude,
that's hilarious.
Bro,
I didn't know it was a crowd of people.
Bro, if I could have bet on Hansen Yu shorts, like I could bet on Hansen Yu going to get PR in the next 2 months. Bro, I would be so rich. If I could bet on the Joukun Lee's thing, if I could bet, bro. The Yufeng Du sub 5 call, if I bought stocks, bro. I'm saying, I understand the legality. It's children. I think if it's to happen, you can only bet on potential overs. You can never bet the under. It's too easy to throw. I just say, oh, I didn't play in first pair, and then I bet $1 million on myself to lose. You know what I mean? That's easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can only bet on the over, but that is huge. That's massive. And I'm not pro sports betting. I know plenty of people my age who bet illegally. I do not bet. Never been my kind of tea. I saw a stat. It's like 30% of men in the U.S. think that,
dude, it's absurd.
Sports betting is like a viable path to financial freedom. It's
like, dude, it is absurd.
That, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is like low key an epidemic.
Oh, it actually, it's so bad. It's really bad.
It's really, really bad. So I think that there are definitely things to avoid. I wonder if you can just like literally just have like a bet limit and be like, yeah, you can only bet at most $5, and keeps it safe.
I need to bet more, dude. I need to bet more.
There you go, dude. He's already itching for it. He's itching.
Dude, I want it so bad, dude. I want to bet so bad.
Oh my goodness.
You were saying, dude, because it's like I want people to understand the game like I do. I want people to be looking at the stats like I do. I be looking at cubing China. I'm like, who's the next Chinese kid to pop? Who's taking my WR11 ranking? Dude, I'm looking at it, and I'm more in tune with the game than ever. And if you add money to it, there's an incentive for me to be informed. It's GG's, bro. I'm betting the house.
No, you're exactly right. Think about this, right? Like, because this is what we used to do in college, right? We used to, when we were just bored, like before an exam, like we're just trying to procrastinate, just kill time, right? We would watch horse races in Australia or just like random places. We knew nothing about horse races. We have no idea what we're doing. We would just randomly pick like the funniest name or just like the guy, or just literally just like roll a die sometimes. And we would like just bet like really small amounts, like $2 or whatever, because you can do this on like online sites. Um, and we would like learn about horse racing through this. Like we would then like be like, okay, we would start to look into each of these horses and be like, all right, what's this horse's like record or whatever? Like, how's this horse done recently? What kind of like training does this horse go through? At some point, I think we were looking at like what kind of stuff the horses eat. And like we're deep in the sauce, and like a couple days before that, we had no idea that that you could even bet on horses online. So I think it's like another way that potentially to get people into the system. Now, is it the most ethical way? No, obviously not. You want people to just purely be interested in it. But it is like another way to, I think if done safely, I think there are ways to get people more invested into it.
Yeah, for sure. That is where the marketing of cubing is a little tricky, right? Like we said, the legality of children and betting on kids, but also game is game. Game is game.
I mean, hey, if you can call it, maybe you deserve to be rewarded, right?
That's what I'm. Hey, as somebody who's been calling it, that's what I've been saying it.
Of course you're saying it, dude. You got a hot hand right now. Imagine if every single prediction you made was like backwards.
Dude, I'm kind of geeked. I'm geeked on my little hot streak. I'm just saying.
And again, dude, Rosman called Shunny to win the world championship.
Bro.
If that actually happened, that he deserves a raise. He saw something.
A raise from 0 is just 0.
Yeah, he deserves a 10% raise.
We need to double his salary.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. I think that's about it. Before we head off, is there anything you wanted to mention or talk about, or anything you thought was interesting, or just giving you?
Dude, I think cubing is so interesting, and I think cubing has never been more interesting. Maybe it's a product of the fact that I'm more into it than ever before. But yeah, I think cubing is so fun, and I hope you all listeners, I think the people who listen to this type of podcast are like already like deep into cubing, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I hope you guys are ready for the ride. I think it's going to be a really, really fun 6 months. I think it's going to be a really, really fun 2 years. And depending on that, yeah, remains to be seen where it all goes. We're open for the best for cubing, that's for sure.
Heck yeah, man. I'm super excited. Hopefully it plays out in a positive manner. And whatever it ends up being, at least hopefully I don't need to go back to school.
yeah. Plus, I think I don't know exactly when this will come out. Whenever you finish editing, I guess. But I think there's like quite a lot of fun things, at least that I know of, that are gonna get announced pretty soon.
Oh, dude, I know. I've been teasing, but I can't say anything yet, dude.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff. I think it's gonna be really, really fun. So hope you all stick around.
All right. I appreciate you being on, Manu. Hopefully I get a chance.
I appreciate you for having me, man. Dude, this has been fantastic. Ever since we first talked at NEC, I'm like, this is the guy. Like I'm shocked that like we got along so well, because I thought, because my initial impression of you was like, yeah, I just want to keep to myself. I know what's going on. Like, I'm not talking to no 12-second solver, dude. Like, forget this guy. No. You got no smoke.
Dude, no,
which is true, by the way.
I've known you forever.
All I'm gonna say is I'm top 100 now. All right, so yeah. I have some legitimacy beyond my stupid like Indian NRs like back in 2013. I have some legitimacy. So
clock and R, let's go. Talk that talk. Clock
and R, because I was the only one.
Yeah,
let's go.
Nah, dude, I feel like I've known you forever, man. It's surprising to me to think about it, but I think we've really only started talking at NAC. And I feel like
I think that's right.
That's insane. I feel like I've known you forever, but yeah, man. That's my commentary duo, bro. I'm trying to.
Dude, the commentary is gonna go so hard. I'm so excited for World's commentary because it's gonna be so good. Like I think like we've finally like dialed in what commentary should look like, and oh my goodness, I get so excited whenever I think about Worlds. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, dude, I'm geeked. I've never applied for staff before, but I've officially applied. So hopefully they get me on the mic for 3x3. Don't make me do anything else.
Please, score one.
Please, for the love of God, not again. Right here. Please, not again.
Dude, oh my God, I go back to us commentating Square One at Supin in South Oxford, and I'm just like, Wow, they literally could have gotten a rock to do this, and it would have been better.
No, dude,
Like
we
I had
killed
no
it.
idea what I was
I
talking
had no
about.
idea either, but we can fake it good. That's
We
all that
learned. We
matters.
learned. No, we're gonna learn.
Oh yeah.
We're,
I do market
we're gonna.
research.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I'm
exactly. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna figure it out. Don't
I'll
worry.
ask
Don't
chat
worry. We
what to
got
talk
this.
about.
Like, during like while the stream is going on,
Chat,
like, chat,
what's
please,
happening? Please let me know.
please, someone analyze Kowalski.
All right, man. Well, look, I appreciate you being on, dude. You're actually the GOAT for real. Hopefully whoever's watching enjoyed the pod. Not sure when this will be out or when the next episode will be out. But hopefully you enjoyed. Again, thank you to
Comment, subscribe.
Yes,
like, comment, subscribe.
Dude. Please. I am officially a full-time cuber. Please buy my channel membership. Please. Or my coaching. Anywho. Thanks, guys. That'll be it. That was Dilly Dally, episode 1. We dillied and dallied.
Dilly Dally, episode 1 in the books, dude.
Yes, sir.
That's fun.
Dillied and dallied. The list has been checked off. That's all we had to do today. And
dude, yeah, exactly. So many checkoffs. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed.
Yep.
Ta-ta.
Appreciate it.